Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Critical Failure. So I apologize if you hear a screaming baby in the background. My roommate's daughter is going to possibly be screaming. But yeah, this is going to be for like the next 4 videos. So if you hear screaming in the next several videos and you don't have an explanation, sorry. And I know it's like dark as shit. I don't understand why the camera absolutely hates me, but it does. Uh, but anyway, uh, so this is going to be like some DM tips that I have as someone who's been DMing for a little bit, mainly in my most recent campaign. Uh, Starting off, if you play with a lot of people who are new to D&D, kind of be on top of their stuff, dealing with being new in general, and then adding on top of it, they might be doing just salt like how my party is. Be on top of it. I'm still running into players who think one thing and don't understand. I have a player who is used to 3.5 rules, so he tries to incorporate that, not knowing that it's changed in 5e. Uh, that happens. Just be on top of it. You never know what things might happen. Try to introduce roleplay into an element. Roleplay is very important in my opinion. Some games might not do it. Some plays just might do the entire hack and slash thing. I don't like it per se, as much as action is always fun. I like to blend it. I think the last several games have been mostly roleplay with a couple times of action, usually stemming from like one massive like kind of attack. Kind of, I'll explain in a separate video what I did to my party, but it's I like roleplay. It's a very fun thing to do, mainly when my current group is full of people who are new. Or at least not very introduced into Dungeons and Dragons. Usually only had a couple one shots or a small campaign, if they've even gotten that. Not even like I know one person had a campaign go on that they ended up like stopping after a couple sessions because of scheduling and shit. She's happy with what's going on. I don't think I DM'd that well, but Edward, who you probably have seen on this channel before if you watch my older content, he's also playing in this game, and he does say that this campaign is doing pretty decent. I take that as a compliment as someone who does not value their DMing as much. Uh, but yeah, I really enjoy this campaign so far, and the roleplay everyone is doing is great. Try to introduce that. My campaign did not have a lot of roleplay within the first, I would say, probably 4 or 5 sessions. Definitely before Bayor Island was really completed, there wasn't much of roleplay. They were still getting new to each other, still understanding the concept, understanding how IDM, and it was fairly intriguing. I definitely had to be sadly railroady because of that. Edward being the only person who is used to playing didn't want to take the spotlight, I guess, because he's like the only person who's really played for years in 5e. Uh, Albert himself, not his, it's the character Albert, but my friend Miles. He, there's wow, girlfriend, but otherwise Miles, my friend, he had been playing 3.5. He's depending on his character, role plays differently. This one's kind of like the strong silent type, which is nice because he does have his role play moments. He's playing a homebrew character, homebrew race and everything. So we can easily go into that. I guess I'm going to start like a whole fucking thing on DM tips now, but it's really nice seeing how you can see the progression of these players, into which they all know, like, hey, this is my campaign, it's different than others. Like, I run Giselle. They might go into a game to where they play single class. And, I, so far, everyone that I know except one person has played D&D at least once before, and they like this Giselle more. There's, of course, people who don't understand enough, but again, coach them, teach them how to go through things, and take your time. Like, it's not going to be an easy process to get someone who doesn't understand D&D to implement it in a fun way to where they're going to get it easy or understand it within the first couple times. That's my biggest thing, is that I'm grateful that my party has stuck with me throughout all this, is because I don't find myself that entertaining, mainly since I do everything so off the cuff. They blew everything out of proportion, Jesus. Second part, do a lot more off the cuff than you think. I have very generic bullet points. Uh, like, I have nothing really scripted. I have ideas of how I want things to go, but otherwise it's like, I currently have my party set up to where they have to go to a town called La Flora, which I took from Flotsam, from The Witcher, and it's not the exact same. Like, I just took the name from it, but it's basically another village within their, or I should say city, within their campaign setting that they currently have. And They were told to go there right after the Bayora Island entire excursion, which has been like 4 games by now, 4 sessions, and they have decided to do a couple side missions, which is really nice because my players have told me, hey, guess what? These side quests are like really interesting. Like my first 2, which were basic ones, like, hey, you got to protect this bar for a little bit, or you have to chop some firewood and like bring it to a location. Like they're doing regular handyman shit because they're level 2, and I like including stuff like that. Like they got their current adventure that they're on, which they were supposed to go find a bear that was attacking people. Turns out it wasn't a bear, it was some sort of creature was attacking people. They get there, they find out that there was a blacksmith. No, this is all improv, all on the fly. Go to this village, which was set, doesn't have a name. Turns out what happened is this blacksmith, who was an orc, had a family, and he was given a contract from the current government to make weapons for the military. Well, the original blacksmith of the place, which was a elf, did not like the idea of some renowned blacksmith of another location coming in and kind of taking his entire gig, because it was going to be offered to him at first. And he ends up having some really old necromancy stuff down their belt, like stuff that I invented. Basically, like I invented a thing called a hex bag, which I know it happens in real life, but in the game, this hex bag gives them really powerful magic over undead, the ability to create magic undead as much as they put their life force into this hex bag. And if you're interrupted, like say you were taken out of this trance while you're taking control of these undead, that life force is then permanently taken away from you. So that is like the original necromancy in my world, and to which people had learned to evolve from that and not have their own essence taken out of it per se. And it's like, do that type of stuff. Like if you want to show like the ancient arcane arts, make it kind of like you have to sacrifice your own vitality type of things, which is really nice. And like I said, that kind of blends in with the think on your feet type of stuff. Be spontaneous. Don't value the hard written shit that you have already made as much. Like my campaign has gone absolutely fucking south compared to what I expected it, in a good way. There was a stupid amount of roleplay that I never expected. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I never thought was going to happen to this campaign. I thought everyone was going to hate it, and everyone's looking forward to playing like the next Tuesday, or they're upset when the game ends. It's stuff that makes me happy. And after telling Edward, like, hey, I'm modeling after how you do, he's not only to take that as a compliment, I ask him, and I ask all my players after every game, which I guess this goes into number 3. Ask for feedback, see what they want, see what they don't want. I ask, hey, what do you think of today's game? What do you think of the session? And to which some players have said, it's too early to tell, which is really wild because it's like 10 games so far. And some people are like, I'm really enjoying it. I enjoyed this part. I really enjoyed this part. Like it's really awesome. And it's kind of cool, not gonna lie. So definitely ask your players what you think, and try to ask other DMs like, hey, would you like to sit on my game and just kind of listen, see how everything's going, try to kind of like, I guess, like have an audience of sorts and see what they think of what you can do better. I've already asked Edward, who again, he's a DM. He himself has told me, hey, I wouldn't necessarily do this, in which I told him, certain things, yeah, totally, I understand that. Other things, and there's a plan for that. I have, and this is something that I would suggest, have cinematic moments. I guess this is number 4. Moments where your party is kind of helpless, even though for my characters, they're super strong. They're just all there. Like I let them roll. I've told you guys how I typically roll with the 2d20s. If not, find an old video where I talk about it. I'm not sure which ones do, but I have 2 or 3 characters with natural 20s and strengths, or they use their racial feats to get to 20s, and I still had cinematic motions, kind of like anime, to where they're unable to fight back. And I'll give a situation for this one. For the necromancer, who is also a blood hunter, Damien, who is Ed's character, there's a moment where some blood hunters, which he's not classically taught in the blood hunter thing, which is weird, but it's how he wanted to create it. But basically, he's a blood hunter, and versus the traditional ones that they happen to walk across the vetting of a new Order of the Lycanthrope blood hunter who was being oversought by his master, which was, of course, Order of the Lycanthrope, and 2 non-Order of the Lycanthrope blood hunters. I don't know what they were going to be yet. I might do Order of the Ghost Slayer, and then obviously Profane Soul. Might do Order of the Mutant instead. Depends. But no names of these characters yet, but I introduced the Blood Hunters really early on, right after the Trials of Bayora. And the cool thing about this is that he thought they were just werewolves, sentient. He thought they were evil werewolves, but that's fair because usually when it comes to were creatures, I think the werebear is like the only one who's like lawful good or any sort of good aligned. The other ones are usually chaotic evil, chaotic neutral area. And it's really interesting to see how his character, and I tell Ed a lot of things. I told him that these were blood hunters, and I tell him a lot because he separates a character from what he knows. He doesn't metagame, which is really nice. But I gave him that information because I know he's going to purposely start looking into that. He was already doing that anyways, but he's looking into it a little bit more, knowing that they're blood hunters. And off the cuff, this involves fucking some bullshit later dealing with the elf that I was talking about, the necromancy. I gave accidental history because he was reading a ancient tome that is going to be important to the blood hunters. And these blood hunters, going back to it anyways, what my original thing is now that I'm off that rant, they restrained him. He had like a 20 in strength. 2 blood hunters on each arm restrained him, and the master that was the Order of the Lycanthrope that was heading this, that was vetting the other one, not only wounded the original guy who was going to give into his bloodlust because Damien hurt him, but he talked to Damien and he ended up tricking them using some spells, and they got away. And that's why I ended up wanting to possibly do Profane Soul, because they don't really get spells otherwise. But they ended up sneaking away, getting out of there. And I like those types of things where your players, even at high level, know that there are people way fucking stronger than them. That there are people that are in the shadows who could easily wipe them. Because I'm not going to lie, I like it when my players feel super strong, but I also like humbling my characters because they're level 2, super strong due to the Gisult. But knowing that, hey, I can't roll a acrobatics check or a athletics check because I want it to be that way. It's like, no, this is when DM gets to talk and you can't do anything. So imagine it like a cinematic. I like those things. I suggest you use them too, but use them in a way that's tactful. Ed did not like it, and I just simply told him, hey, look, not everything in this game is going to be the way you want. I told him they can easily TPK themselves by accepting the wrong mission. And you know what? They accepted it as a party. I told them this well before they started. Said, you can take a mission. You can go into the wrong place and get absolutely eviscerated. And I'm not going to take blame. Why? Because this world has consequences. Note, after level 5, they're going to do the Trials of Anubis thing, which basically obsoletes death for a reason that I like, which it adds religion into the entire thing. Ed knows about that type of shit. But I really enjoy adding those types of like cinematics, because not only do the players that I are running for it say, yeah, like knowing that because I had to describe it a little bit later, but they were like knowing that we automatically act, and I take their characters into a consideration of what they would do, into which none of their characters know each other at the point that this happened. This was the session right after the Trials of Bayora. They barely have any sort of real congealed friendship or even camaraderie of any sort. And so they kind of sat there and were like, are we going to sacrifice Damien to these werewolves? And to which the rest of the party does not know what they are. They just know they're werewolves to some degree. And so they just watched as they were going to possibly flee, into which I found out later that they would have probably done it, but their characters value their lives over anyone else. And that's really nice. Also, 4, depending on the difficulty of your campaign, add magic weapons to a certain degree. I'm using a lot of +1s because of the sheer fact that they're super easy to make. Another thing, if you have seen Bastions of Basilisks, another YouTube channel that I'm a part of for D&D, it does a lot of TTRPGs and roleplay things, but we have talked about using the Artificer or Artificer temporary magic item selection that they can do basically. I plan on using them to where they get 3 charges to 5 charges, depending on the price of the thing and the ability that I give them. And depending on how you are as DM, they get X amount of charges. After those charges, they get depleted. It turns into a normal weapon or suit of armor, something like that. I like it because the sheer fact is like, hey, guess what? You get to have this great sword. And you know what this great sword does? It does 1d6 fire damage or whatever, but you only get 3 charges. And they're like, well, why do I want this? This is not a permanent magic weapon. And your answer is, well, because I thought it was a cool thing, into which you introduce this either without telling the players or telling the players. It's up to you. I think it would be nice to not tell them, because it's like, hey, guess what? You pick it up and it does nothing. And they're like, what? And it's like, yeah. I usually have it to where they have to activate it first, to where it's the next attack eats it up. It has to make contact for, like, say, the fire or something like that, because otherwise the arcane energy just goes right back into whatever it does. I'm using basically just into the weapon itself, but if you want to use, say, crystals, that would be awesome too. But yeah, just like include that type of small stuff. And yeah, other than the ranting, that is for-ish DM tips. Hopefully you guys can sort through the rambling, but otherwise, thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next video. Peace.